in the sun-baked lands of Canaan, where the Orontes River meanders through the Syrian plains, a pivotal moment in ancient history was brewing. The Battle of Kadesh. Two dominant forces, Egypt under the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses II and the Hittite Empire, led by King Muwatalli II, stood poised for a confrontation that would determine dominion over the Near East's most lucrative trade routes. The seeds of conflict. Kadesh was more than just a city. It was a vital nexus of ancient commerce, connecting Egypt, Babylon, Anatolia, and the Mediterranean. Control of Kadesh meant control over the economic lifeblood of Canaan and Syria. Ramesses II, a youthful and ambitious pharaoh, aimed to restore Egypt to its former glory after the rule of Seti I. Meanwhile, the Hittite Empire, expanding from Anatolia, was pushing southward, posing a significant threat to Egyptian influence. Years of skirmishes had led to an unavoidable open war by 1274 BCE. Ramesses II, at the head of an army of 20,000 soldiers and 2,000 chariots, was determined to reclaim Kadesh and reassert Egypt's northern prestige. The march to war. From his capital of Ramesses, the pharaoh marched north with 4 divisions, Ammonius, Ra, Ta, and Seth, each named in honor of a powerful god. Ramesses himself led the Ammonius division. Their journey cut through harsh deserts and rugged mountains. His detailed records, known as the Kadesh inscriptions, which were later carved into the temple walls at Luxor and Abu Simbel, stand as the most comprehensive military accounts surviving from the ancient world. As the army approached Kadesh, Egyptian scouts captured 2 Hittite spies disguised as nomadic travelers. They falsely claimed that Muwatalli's forces were far to the north, a deceptive ploy that convinced Ramesses to advance with undue haste and a lack of caution. The trap of Muwatalli II. In reality, the Hittite king had concealed his formidable army behind Kadesh. It consisted of 3,500 chariots and 40,000 infantry, bolstered by allies from Aleppo and Carchemish. While Ramesses led the Ammonius division forward, the other Egyptian divisions were significantly behind, spread out across the terrain. The Hittites were ready to spring their trap. On May 5th, 1274 BCE, as the Ammonius division was setting up camp near Kadesh, Muwatalli launched a surprise attack. Thousands of chariots surged from the hills, descending upon the Egyptians before they could fully prepare. Chaos and courage. The battlefield descended into absolute chaos. Hittite chariots smashed through the Egyptian lines, overturning tents and trampling soldiers underfoot. Ramesses found himself isolated, encircled by enemies, with only his royal guard remaining to fight alongside him. Ancient texts depict him as the Falcon of Ra, standing alone among jackals. Yet the pharaoh refused to yield. Mounting his chariot, he rallied his men and launched a counterattack. Arrows filled the sky as Egyptian soldiers fought fiercely to maintain their ground. Just as the Hittites seemed on the verge of victory, reinforcements arrived. The Nearan division from Amurru. They struck the Hittites on their flank, throwing their chariot forces into disarray. Ramesses seized the opportunity and led a fierce counterassault, driving the invaders back toward the Orontes River. Both armies disengaged at dusk, battered but unbroken. The night before destiny. As the sun sank behind the walls of Kadesh, Ramesses surveyed a battlefield littered with broken chariots and fallen bodies. Smoke hung heavy over the Egyptian camp. He knew that the coming dawn would bring a battle that would decide not only the fate of Kadesh, but also the destiny of empires. Under the starlit sky, he prayed at Ammonius Ra for strength and awaited the day when gods and men would test their resolve upon the plains of Kadesh. At dawn, the plains of Kadesh were shrouded in mist. The air was still, holding its breath, until the first rumble of chariot wheels shattered the silence. Both sides were acutely aware that this day would determine the fate of their respective empires. Morning formations. South of the Orontes River, the Egyptian Ammonius division regrouped after the previous night's unexpected assault. The other divisions, Ra, Ta, and Seth, were pushing hard to join the pharaoh. Ramesses established a defensive semicircle, positioning his back to the river. He recognized a potential danger. Another ambush could spell disaster for his entire army. To the north, King Muwatalli II was preparing his decisive strike. Hidden behind Kadesh were 3,500 chariots and 40,000 infantry, the largest chariot force ever assembled. Each Hittite chariot carried 3 men, a driver, a shield-bearer, and a spearman. They were slow yet incredibly destructive, like bronze and wooden behemoths rolling across the sand. The northern storm. By mid-morning, Muwatalli gave the signal. Thousands of Hittite chariots charged across the Orontes River, their thunderous advance shaking the very ground. Dust billowed into the air like thick smoke. The Egyptians braced themselves, archers launching volleys of blazing arrows. But the Hittites crashed through their lines with seemingly unstoppable force. Ramesses stood tall atop his golden chariot, bow drawn, commanded with the serene confidence of a god. Ammonius is with me. None shall stand before his light. He shouted, inspiring his men. The Egyptians formed a desperate semicircle around their king, fighting with unwavering tenacity to hold their ground. The counterstroke of the sun god. Just when all seemed lost, the Ra and Ta divisions finally arrived, exhausted from their forced march. They entered the battlefield from the southwest, striking the Hittite flank. Their lighter, faster chariots weaved among the heavier Hittite vehicles, unleashing a storm of arrows with deadly precision. Seizing the opportune moment, Ramesses led a personal counterattack. His golden chariot tore through the enemy ranks like a thunderbolt. The Hittite formation faltered, their heavy vehicles becoming ensnared in the wreckage of the earlier assault. Egyptian warriors roared with renewed vigor, their pharaoh transformed into a living god of war. Ancient inscriptions recount, he was alone, none beside him. Yet he broke the ranks of the Hittites, his arm mighty as the sun, a deadly stalemate. By afternoon, the field had become a wasteland of shattered chariots and fallen soldiers. Neither side could claim a clear victory. Ramesses had saved his army, turning a potential disaster into a display of defiance. Muwatalli, while still holding Kadesh, had failed to crush the Egyptian forces. As night fell, the cries of the dying echoed across the plain. Pharaoh walked among his soldiers, his armor stained crimson, his eyes burning with determination. He had stared into the face of death and emerged as a legend. The second night, that night, the Egyptian camp was illuminated by countless fires. Ramesses noted in his campaign log, "I was alone. No charioteer, no prince beside me. Only Ammonius, my god, gave me strength against the millions of Hittites." Across the river, Muwatalli also pondered the situation. He had inflicted heavy losses on Egypt, but had been unable to deliver the final blow. Both sides were exhausted, and neither could sustain another day of such brutal conflict. The Battle of Kadesh, though ultimately inconclusive, would be remembered as a testament to courage, deception, and divine will, a story that would resonate through the ages. As the sun set over Kadesh, its fading light revealed a landscape of shattered chariots and scorched bodies. The dead were beyond counting, but it was clear that both empires had paid a terrible price for their ambition, the cost of blood. In the Egyptian camp, survivors tended to their wounds. Pharaoh Ramesses II moved among them, silent and stern. Though he had repelled the Hittites, he understood that Kadesh remained out of his reach. Across the Orontes, Muwatalli II faced his own grim reality. Thousands of horses lay dead, and hundreds of chariots were destroyed. Neither side could afford to continue the fight. Tactically, it was a draw, but Ramesses refused to concede defeat. That night, he ordered torches to be lit across the plain and, before his weary army, proclaimed that the favor of Ammonius had prevailed. The dignified withdrawal. At dawn, Ramesses convened his generals. Supplies were running low, and his men were exhausted. Continuing the fight would mean annihilation, yet he would not retreat in disgrace. He commanded his soldiers to form ranks, banners held high, as they withdrew under blazing sun, a retreat that resembled a triumphant parade. Later inscriptions at Abu Simbel would boast, "I left them trembling in fear. I spare them only by my mercy." Thus, Ramesses marched home not as a defeated leader, but as a living legend who had defied disaster through divine courage. Muwatalli's strategy. Muwatalli II, meanwhile, claimed victory for retaining Kadesh. He fortified the city and reasserted Hittite dominance across Syria. Egypt's northern expansion was halted, at least for the time being. However, his triumph soon turned sour. The Hittite Empire faced internal rebellion, famine, and growing pressure from the Assyrians. Both great powers, weakened and battered, realized that endless war would ultimately destroy them both. From blood to diplomacy. A decade later, fate intervened. Muwatalli died and was succeeded by his brother Hittite III. Ramesses II, older and wiser, had stabilized Egypt and sought a path to peace. Envoys crossed the deserts, bearing tablets inscribed with promises rather than swords. In 1258 BC, the two empires signed what historians regard as the world's first known peace treaty, the Treaty of Kadesh. One surviving line proclaims, Egypt and Hittite shall live forever in peace and brotherhood. Should any enemy attack one, the other shall aid him. A covenant forged by warriors transformed into a bond between kings. The echo of Kadesh. Upon returning to Thebes, Ramesses immortalized the battle in colossal reliefs, a monument not to victory but to endurance. Modern historians view Kadesh not as a military triumph, but as a masterstroke of diplomacy and propaganda. The Battle of Kadesh became more than just blood and steel. It became a symbol. It proved that true greatness lies not in conquest, but in knowing when to embrace peace. After more than a decade of rivalry and ruin, the empires of Egypt and Hittite finally recognized that a sword cannot protect a throne forever. From the ashes of Kadesh emerged something entirely new, the world's first peace. Birth of the Treaty of Kadesh. Around 1258 BC, envoys from Hittite III journeyed across the deserts of Syria, carrying a clay tablet inscribed in cuneiform, a message of peace for Pharaoh Ramesses II. Two versions were created, one in Akkadian, the diplomatic language of the time, and one in Egyptian hieroglyphs. Both were deposited in temples at Karnak and Hattusa, the capitals of the two former adversaries. Historians today consider this to be the earliest known international peace treaty in human civilization. The terms of peace. The treaty's preamble declared, the great king Hittite of Hittite and the great king Ramesses, the son of Ra, ruler of Egypt, established peace and brotherhood forever between their lands. Its clauses were strikingly modern. Eternal peace. Neither side shall ever attack or invade the other. Mutual defense. If one is attacked by a third power, the other shall come to their aid. Extradition of fugitives. Neither side shall harbor rebels or defectors. Divine oath. Both kings swore before dozens of gods, Ra, Tezhub, and the deities of earth and sky. Egyptian copies referred to it as the Great Peace, while Hittite records named it a Treaty of Eternal Brotherhood. Diplomacy replaces war. Following the signing, official embassies began traveling between Thebes and Hattusa. They exchanged gold, horses, artisans, and knowledge. Trade routes reopened across the Near East. The world, once ravaged by incessant conquest, entered a brief but golden age of stability. Egypt could now concentrate on monumental projects like Abu Simbel and Luxor, while Hittite rebuilt its strength in Anatolia. For the first time in human history, diplomacy proved to be more powerful than the sword. A marriage of peace. To cement the alliance, Hittite III sent his daughter to Egypt to marry Ramesses II. Her Egyptian name was Mather-Nefer. She sees the beauty of Ra's truth. It was the first recorded international royal marriage in Egyptian history. Their union symbolized the transformation of enmity into unity. The storm god of Hittite joining hands with the sun god of Egypt. From that moment onward, the two empires shared not just borders but also ideas, art, and faith. Legacy for eternity. Today, a replica of the Treaty of Kadesh hangs in the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its words still resonate across 3 millennia. There shall be peace and brotherhood between Hittite and Egypt forever. The Battle of Kadesh began as a tale of blood and iron, yet it concluded as the dawn of diplomacy. Ramesses II and Hittite III, once enemies, became architects of peace. Their legacy serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, reason and trust can outlive war. Over 3 millennia have passed, yet the name Kadesh still echoes, a battle that altered the course of civilization. It was more than just a clash of armies. It was a pivotal moment in how humanity understood power, courage, and peace. When two suns collided, the Battle of Kadesh pitted 2 great empires against each other. Egypt, under Ramesses II, the empire devoted to the sun god Ra, and Hittite, ruled by Muwatalli II, masters of bronze and the storm. The struggle for Syria, the crucial trade link between East and West, drew both powers to the plains of Kadesh. Ramesses, misled by false intelligence, marched directly into an ambush. Yet, through valor and unwavering faith, he transformed potential disaster into survival and survival into legend. Though neither side emerged victorious, Ramesses II became the embodiment of courage and leadership, immortalized not by conquest, but by enduring against all odds. The first recorded battle in history. Kadesh stands as the earliest battle in history for which a detailed written account exists, preserved within Egyptian temples at Luxor and Abu Simbel. It revealed the evolution of ancient military organization and highlighted the duel of chariot tactics. Egypt's light, agile two-man chariots versus the Hittites' heavy, three-man war machines. It was a study in logistics, deception, and resilience, and above all, the birth of recorded military strategy. War and propaganda, the art of Pharaoh. Upon return to Egypt, Ramesses ordered the events of Kadesh to be carved into the walls of his temples. In these reliefs, he stands alone against the Hittites, radiating like the sun, in what constitutes the first great masterpiece of state propaganda. Through this carefully crafted imagery, Ramesses shaped not just history, but memory itself. He transformed a draw into a victory and a military campaign into a myth. This act of storytelling would inspire future rulers, from Alexander the Great to Julius Caesar, in understanding how power could be written as much as fought for, from war to wisdom. Yet Kadesh's greatest legacy lies not on the battlefield, but in the treaty of peace that followed years later. It introduced a revolutionary idea that nations could coexist through words rather than weapons. When Ramesses married the Hittite princess Nefer, it marked the first diplomatic union in recorded history, demonstrating that alliances could be forged through understanding, not conquest. Today, the replica of the Treaty of Kadesh displayed at the United Nations headquarters stands as a testament to that enduring truth. Out of blood came peace. Out of war came law. The eternal echo. Kadesh endures because it speaks to the timeless human struggle between pride and the pursuit of peace. It demonstrates that even in an age defined by bronze and blood, humanity could glimpse wisdom, the realization that true strength resides not in destruction but in restraint. The desert winds continue to whisper across the ruins of Kadesh, carrying a message older than any empire. He who conquers others is mighty, but he who conquers himself is eternal.